Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Positive Filter. This is a really exciting episode. I'm really excited for this one. This is Black Men in Career Services. If you did not know, I am Phillip Wilkerson, and I happen to be a black man myself. Surprise! And I thought it would be great to do an episode sharing my identity and the identity of my guest in this space in career services. So I just kind of want to do a little thing. I'm Phillip Wilkerson, a higher ed professional, podcast creator, and career development enthusiast. And lastly, I want to also do a little quick plug for two things that I'm really excited about. So if you've been following along, I recently had on my show the creator of the 5-Minute Journal by Intelligent Change. So there's something I really adhere to, something I'm really excited about. So check it out. You can visit on the website. And secondly, one of my fraternity brothers, Mike Frimpong, I don't know why I got tongue-tied there. He has a show that he and his friends created called Tiny Froze, which is a web series about a millennial character named Fiona, who is a mental health professional who struggles with relationships, career goals, and the infamous imposter syndrome. You can watch her show on YouTube or follow it on Instagram at Tiny Froze. So without further ado, I'm going to explain the layout of the show. So we're going to have one-on-one. We're going to have some guests, Justin Harris, Joseph Lyons, Quintrell Lenoir, and Reggie Hill. And we're going to come on one at a time, and they're going to share their experiences. I'm going to ask them a few questions, and we're really going to dive into our experiences in career services. And then at the end, just kind of wrap it up. So for those that are joining, please chime in, ask questions, really engage. For those that will watch this later, please just share this episode with your family members and friends, as well as, really engage with us later on. Follow up with us on LinkedIn. So I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to have our first guest. I'm going to have our first guest, who is Mr. Joseph Lyons. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
That's correct. Joseph Lyons. Lyons like the animal.
Okay. Great. Well, you're our first guest. Before we get into, just share with the listeners a little bit about who you are tonight.
Interesting. Well, first I'd like to say good evening and thank you for allowing these esteemed gentlemen to have this platform tonight. I think it's really exciting for us to have this dialogue and even to educate those who are talking about longevity in the field. So speaking of longevity, this is actually, I'm approaching my 34th year in higher education. I've been very blessed to train and mentor and provide service to students and young professionals. I initially started out at a non-HBCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, and I was there for 24 years. And I share this story, and I could take the whole time, but not going to, about talking to anyone who's interested in being in this field about how to advocate for yourself. Because after 24 years, I sort of felt I was going to just retire and ride out into the sunset. And things began to change. And in that change, I didn't really see myself in terms of my fit and my leadership. So I began to do informational interviews, which I always talk with our students about, but they work. And so I did informational interviews with various institutions and various directors of career centers. And I happened to interview with the director of Virginia State's Career Services Office. And at the end of that meeting, I didn't talk about, I'm disgruntled or I want to change. I just talked about their services and what they provided students. And at the end of that meeting, that director said, well, how can I help you? And I had my resume handy. And I extended it to her and I said, if you have any opportunities available, consider me. And on the last day of a position closing, she said, apply for this. It was a STEM coordinator. And then I got that position. And then from there, I became the associate director. The director was leaving. And I, again, advocated for myself and became interim director. Then I guess the university saw my leadership potential. And I was involved in an office that provided tutoring and academic support for students and career services. I became the executive director for that. And then now at this point, I've now transcended to the director of student engagement and career services. So if you can think about it, assisting students academically, students with their activities, their leadership, their engagement. I serve as the advisor to our Student Government Association, and also career services. So again, going from BCU to career advisor, associate director, and now to where I'm today. But really just because I advocated for me, and only you can advocate for you.
I love it. I love it. And we got some comments in here about Virginia State. So I'm just curious, you said you've had a wonderful career over 20 years, close to 30 years. How did this start? Because I think no one ever really grows up and says, "Look, I want to be a higher ed professional."
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most planned happenstance careers that I've come across. So how did the origin story start for you?
Well, it's really interesting. After coming out of graduate school years ago, I applied for positions. And actually, my first job, 6 months, I was a drug counselor in Richmond, Virginia. And at the same time, I'd applied for a position at Virginia Commonwealth University. And at that time, the institution had a program for students that were from various backgrounds, low income, low academic backgrounds, and they came through a summer program, and I served as an academic advisor. And then also I worked with students who were in a peer mentor program for that program. I coordinated their tutoring program. But I'll share with you one of the things I think that has enabled me to move forward is in a role in a field that I've been in for so long, that each year is something new. Each year I'm looking for something innovative. So in addition to me being an academic advisor, I taught orientation courses on campus. And then at Jason Reynolds Community College in Richmond, I taught freshman orientation courses. I sat on committees and involved in search committees on campus. I advocated for students regularly. And I think because the university saw my eagerness, my excitement, that enabled me to kind of move up into career services. The provost at that time asked me, had I ever thought of career services? And to be transparent, I had not. But of course, I had been doing that all along in my conversations with students. So I was sort of transferred to the Career Center. And then at that time, while I was there, I was able to do some things there, launch a career ambassador program. Again, because you're an African American male in a non-HBCU, often student organizations and Greek organizations would ask me to do presentations. And so because of that leadership, then I was moved up in career services. And then those attributes enabled me to then be able to apply for other opportunities. And also and for me to be involved in the leadership level I'm at Virginia State University. So again, really being involved, not just this is your job and this is what you do, but also look for more opportunities. You might not get paid for it initially, but of course it'll become lucrative in terms of your moving forward professionally.
I love that. I was actually, I do send questions, but I'm hearing things that kind of really resonated with me. Going back to your VCU experience, and I kind of really align with that, is that how do you face where, because you were a Black male, you started getting people, in regards to young people reaching out to you, and you're one, and you can't really, not say help as many, but like, what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure Greek organizations, all that. And that I get that same mindset too, where we try to have, the correct channels and say like, I'm not your advisor for this, but they still come to you regardless of your lane as an advisor. So how do you deal with that when you're, in the career services office as a visible Black male, and a lot of young Black males might just gravitate to you because they see you and ask you to do things, as you said, as extra,
Well,
normal requirement?
two things come to mind. One is the fact that I was strong in collaboration. So yes, I might not have been their advisor, but I was also connecting with the person who was their advisor, connecting with the other office that the student was associated with. It's really interesting. I think of a student who I meet with today who was coming to meet with me, and then they were going to meet with another person in my office. And I said, "Oh, you're going to go meet with them too?" And the student said, "Oh, yeah, I like both perspectives." So again, I think it's this kind of idea that we all coming together to raise up and to train and educate our students. That needs to be our mission. And then the other thing is training the trainer. So again, at VCU, as well as at Virginia State, yes, a wealth of students come in, especially African American male students, without that father figure. And so, yes, I would mentor them, but then I would mentor them and train them to rise up and then train others. And again, with myself being an adult professional, and then a young peer professional that I'm training and mentoring them, they're getting all types of broad experiences and all types of engagement.
I
So
like that.
again, training the trainer.
I love that. So you're like basically you teach them, and then it kind of like that spreads out, exponentially. Like if you touch one person, that person touched three, then you kind of touch whatever. Like I can't do quick math, but you know what I mean. That it trickles down, right?
It does. It just does. It
So
just does.
now in the bigger scheme, I think you've been in career services for quite some time, where you've seen the models change, right? Like I think we gone from where it was kind of like job placement ish to like I guess more exploration. Now it's more industry focused, and I don't know what's going to be in the future.
Yeah.
COVID, it's
Yeah,
all
it's
over.
really interesting. I was sort of pondering that myself. So, and yes, in the beginning, it was called career planning and placement,
Yeah,
where students would go in, there'd be a bulletin board
yeah,
with all of these postings on it, and students would apply. But now it's become, I know, industry based, but it's also more career readiness based.
mhm.
Reaching our students from their first year that they're coming in, and then involving them in activities so that when they graduate, they make this transition into the workplace. And of course, that includes internships. But I think the future where we're going. So my son actually just graduated from Old Dominion University, and so I've trying to brag and boast to him, son, I've been in my job for 34 years, and he looked at me and said to himself, why would I want to be in a job for 34 years? So I really think it's going to be more entrepreneurship. And when I speak of that, yes, students, I think I see students now wanting to own their own business. They're wanting to own their own type of honing their craft and then individually working with it. And then also the understanding that anything that you're involved in, any career field or job, you're an entrepreneur of it. Again, in my craft, in my field, there was no roadmap. So I had to build myself. I had to build my skills, my networking, my connections, my strengths, and my weaknesses. I had to build them to develop it into the person that I am today. And I'm an entrepreneur of it. So I think entrepreneurship is going to be the way to go in this future field. Thinking about anything in a major or a discipline, that is that you're an entrepreneur of that discipline or major.
I love it. I love it. And so, I'm jumping around topics, but I'm
That's
thinking,
fine.
also in this space, right? There's not many, and that's why I was like, this was a topic I wanted to touch upon. So maybe can you speak to maybe your earlier experiences? If it was not say isolating, but being maybe the very few in the field, and then have you seen more growth? What have you seen change in that? Just speak to that, like connecting with more other Black men or mentorship.
Sure.
So speak about the early times and then what you're seeing it right now and maybe in the future.
Well, it's sort of the same in terms of the silos. Like tonight, I'm very excited that we're all together and we're sharing of our stories and our experiences. Oh, would it have been a good discussion for us to come together earlier or have more opportunities to do so? But so often, what we do is we go right back into our world, and our world is so intense and so busy that we don't get the opportunity to have the connections. At various institutions, I think that's what often happens. I know at the non-HBCU, that was often the challenge. So really, to be honest with you, for me to develop my craft and my skills, I would connect in with the non-HBCU colleagues, and then the trickling of colleagues that were there would set up more opportunity. As I'm more seasoned in the field, I know that's what's really of more value, to set up more opportunities to connect with persons who are African American in the field. The other thing is that there are national associations belonging to BASE and NACE. I think I had a thought or shared. It was my thought at one point to be a major officer in the organization, because I think and I know that if we see more leaders at that level, then that will advocate for more African Americans to assume leadership roles in the field. And then the opportunities for more networking. One of the things that I do with, especially with young professionals, I will carve out time now, which I didn't do earlier, to meet and talk with them and find out what their career goal is, to view their resume. If I know a colleague or someone in another area, forwarding their resume and advocating on behalf of that person. So really being seasoned in this field, recognizing that it's your responsibility for you to reach out and lead someone into that path. It's really interesting. One of my students who worked with the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond at VCU connected with one of my students at Virginia State University who is interested in being a part of the organization and mentored that student, trained them on the interviews, and now that student is working at the Federal Reserve Bank. And now that student, again, is trying to train other students at Virginia State University. So there's a responsibility that comes with this leadership and the fact that we're in certain fields to bring other persons on board as well and to train them.
Yeah, I totally agree with the silo part, because for me, I knew that was important. So earlier during the pandemic, I created a Black male employer relations group at Mason. Basically, I started informally where I just found a bunch of emails of Black men that went to Mason, and I BCC'd all of them and had them get together on Zoom. And then I said, well, maybe I should make this more formalized. So I went to HR, asked HR, how do you make me and a colleague, Ibrahim, made it a formal listserv, and then we got a little thing on the website. But that was important for me because I wanted to have opportunities outside of just career services to connect with Black men and build resources. But then I totally agree with you about leadership, seeing different committees and things like that. That's been really very helpful. I think seeing the bigger world beyond Mason and connecting with you online. I know there's a couple, Black men in career services LinkedIn group. I think I'm in that group me's and all that because it was so important for me to connect outside of my world, outside of my bubble, because it does feel sometimes lonely in that space. And this knowing, regardless that you're in a totally different bubble than me, that I can still identify with that. So I think that's great.
Especially for men, I'd had a really hard day one day and a lot of political meetings and confrontations. And to be honest with you, Phil, I went to the barbershop. And when I was in that barbershop, we began to talk and laugh and joke, and the TV was on and people were eating food. And it became such a relaxing, supportive environment. And so I think the more opportunities that we, especially as African-American men, who sometimes feel that we're alone in our bubble and we have to do it alone, to have these support systems and reasons to dialogue, makes us really stronger. And you mentioned the pandemic, and one of the things I want to shout out as well, especially during this period of time, in serving as a career advisor, but often having different types of roles, I've had to refer students, especially African-American males, to services such as counseling. And again, that's sort of a taboo word in our environment. But if we're speaking about being professionally sound and academically sound, it has to start first with being mentally sound. It has to start with being mentally sound.
Well, I know I can have you on for a whole episode by itself, which I will.
You got some. Well, you good. You got some other esteemed people who've got some wonderful stories. I know they're going to share. So I'm excited about that.
So before we get off, one, any way that you feel people can connect with you later, please share. And then drop, if you had one piece of advice to share with me or the listeners, what would that be? So how can we connect with you and your mic drop, mic drop comment? Yeah.
Sure. Again, my name is Joseph Lyons, Executive Director for Student Engagement at Career Services. My email address is jlyons@vsu.edu. I'm really hard on this mentor thing, this mentor relationship. And my mentor is Dr. Quincy Moore. And I first met him at Virginia Commonwealth University. He gave me my starting career at VCU when I didn't even know what being a career educator was. And the one thing I value about this person is this is the person who's going to tell me all the wonderful things that I do, but this is also the person who's going to tell me what I need to work on, what I need to build on, and that will hold me accountable. And you need someone in your life that can professionally hold you accountable, that will allow you then to move forward in your life. So seek that mentor. And then lastly, attitude is everything. Everything is attitude. Maintain positivity in everything that you do, and then your life will continue to be positive as well.
I love that. Attitude is everything. Everything is attitude. I don't have no more room on my body for tattoos. Well, I do, but my wife doesn't want me to get no more. But I think
Okay.
that's a great one. I love that. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Mr. Lyons, for joining us tonight. I know it's late and it's past your bedtime, but I really
Yes.
appreciate your time. And we will definitely connect again. Thank you so much.
Look forward to it. Take care. Have a good evening.
All right. So next up, we have my man, Quintrell Lenoir, or Q as I call him. And I'm going to have him come up on here and let's get it cracking. Hello, welcome.
What's going on, Phil? Thanks so much for having me, man. This is such a pleasure. Mr. Lyons, you drop gems on gems. I'm still recovering from all of the gems you dropped. So I really appreciate you leading the way.
So, Q, you recently transitioned. Tell us currently what you're doing, and then we're just gonna get into the conversation. But what are you currently doing right now?
Yeah, man. So I work for the state of Virginia. So specifically, the state agency, Department of Veteran Services. I'm a program manager for what's called the V3 transition program. So essentially, just like in higher ed, we want to help students transition from the institution to the workforce successfully. I help veterans. I help lead a team of regional coordinators that help veterans transition from the military to the civilian life. And transition is a very broad term. So at the heart of what we do is definitely career coaching, but there's a lot of mental aspects to what we do as well, and educating them on the benefits that you have as a veteran. So in a nutshell, that's what I do is a program manager for, the Department of Veteran Services.
All right. So we're both Duke dogs, right? So how did you get into this space? How did you get into career services, man?
Yeah, man. So I'm a career changer. So and my undergrad was exercise science. You can't tell, but I'm a big dude. I'm 6'5", pounds. And so I played football. And so I was really shaped by my mentors, being strength and conditioning coaches, college athletic coaches. So that was my first profession. I went into strength and conditioning, training student athletes to be bigger, faster, stronger. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years. Got a chance to train top Division I athletes, NFL, all-pro defensive tackles. So it was really cool. But then I pivoted to I guess student success and higher education, simply because like I saw the ceiling as a strength coach, and I had a young family at the time. So as my son was being born, I realized like me working 50, 60 hours a week is not sustainable for my marriage and my family. And just looking at the landscape, there's a lot of successful strength coaches, but far and few in between have successful marriages. So I was like, whoa, there's some writing on the wall here. So that's why I kind of pivoted to higher ed. And I kind of asked myself, like, what do I like doing as a strength coach? So it wasn't necessarily designing programs. It was having those off the wall conversations with my student athletes, like how their classes are going, how the relationships are going. So I wanted to pivot to something that would allow me to do more of that. So that's how I got into higher education. From there, I was an academic advisor for student athletes. I got a chance to lead I think it's 2016 football team to a national championship as their academic advisor. And then I pivoted because as an advisor, you do a lot of different things. Like you're not just helping them to do well in the classroom, but you also are like a career coach. So I wanted to lean into that. So I transitioned from academic advising from student athletes to being a career and academic advisor just for our career services department. And then from there, I've transitioned over to the employee development side of things at a different institution. And then I'm where I am now as a transition program manager.
So in those spaces, right? I mean, I'm going to make lots of assumptions, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe in the strength and conditioning world, there was a lot more Black men, right? I don't know. And then to higher ed or just men in general, I don't know. So can you talk about those transitions in regards to career switching and then the identities of the people around you in those different careers as you switched from different spaces?
So surprisingly, Phil, there wasn't a lot of black men. There's a lot of white men as strength coaches, right? The athletes, they were mostly black men for sure.
Yeah.
And my mentors have always been people that didn't look like me. I was lucky enough to have, one of my first mentors, Coach Healy, was at Bridgewater College. He played a huge impact. He was actually from England, black guy from England, and he was a mentor. But that was the only black personal strength and conditioning professional that I've met, right? So yes, the population working in strength and conditioning and higher ed has never been individuals that look like me. I've worked with a lot of coaches, which, they're not my supervisor, they're more colleagues. And there's definitely a lot more representation of black men as coaches. That's a natural kind of segue. If you played sports your whole life, you might have a natural progression to become a coach, right? But as I've worked in higher ed and in the academic advising offices, most of my mentors, most of my leaders have been white women. So it's been interesting. I think that you kind of challenged me with the questions going into this, because I've realized, one, I don't see a lot of representation in terms of, folks that look like me. But then the idea of intersections, right? I'm a black man, but I'm also a man of faith. I'm a man that has a family. I'm from the South. There's a lot of different things. I'm a creative. So I think that I found there's been bits and pieces of parts of other people that have really resonated with me. That's kind of motivated me. But I guess seeing people from the same kind of ethnic background, I haven't seen as much.
So then we talk about it then. Have you ever been in a space or felt that feeling of tokenization or feeling tokenized, being the one of few, the few, right? The few in a space, or I don't know, have you not? And that's, because maybe you connected with other people across campus or broke out of your silos, so you didn't feel so tokenized. But speak to that feeling, if that's ever been a feeling of yours.
Yeah, so I personally haven't felt like I've been tokenized. However, I realized that I've worked in some toxic work environments. I've had leaders that were not great leaders, but to say that I think that they maliciously maybe treated me indifferently because I was a black man, at least they didn't go about presenting it that way. So I personally don't feel like I've been put out on Front Street either to be the voice for all black men, black identities, or have I been kind of put out there to say hey, you only got this because you're a black man. Now I will say this, there's a level of privilege that I've realized that I have being the only man in a career services space and also being the only black person. And I think that because there's not a lot of men in our space, that at least got me to the interview in a lot of cases. Being a strength and conditioning coach, in terms of on paper, I was not the most qualified person to be an academic advisor, right? I really lean into my network and being the only man of color, probably applying for that role. So that helped me, but getting into the interview, I had to come with it. So I just say that to say, there's a level of privilege I think that I've realized with my identity, but I personally haven't felt put on Front Street to be the voice of all things black.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've had a different experience where I did have to be the spokesperson for all things black in certain spaces. And so that's very unique because, like I said, with this series, I've understand that we all have different, while we share identities, we have different experiences in different spaces. So what have you, for me, and I shared earlier, and I believe Mr. Lyons has shared earlier, what have been some ways that you've broken silos and really connected, whether cross departments or cross institutions, to connect with other black men?
Yeah, so honestly, it's been in a few ways. The two ways to stick out is through my faith, actually. So I have a mentor, I would say a friend / mentor / colleague, a guy that I played football with and worked with at JMU. I'll say his name, Ray Brown. And so Ray started this small group on campus at JMU. He pulled a number of guys that just worked in different departments, and it wasn't all black guys in that group, but it just started off with just fellowship and just kind of doing life. We had busy schedules, but just carving out 45 minutes to an hour just to do life with each other and, go through the Bible, talk about life. That was been really rewarding, but it's also been a model for me. So when I left JMU to go to VCU, like I wanted to build relationships. And so I done that. Like I reached out to a couple guys on campus, and it was only for a season, pre-COVID. And that was one of the more impactful ways that I've been able to leverage, I guess, one of my intersections, which was faith, to kind of get in front of other Black guys. The other tool was my athletics background, right? You don't usually see a bunch of big Black guys walking around campus, in a professional setting. But I kind of use that to my advantage. Like a lot of people, they see me and they want to talk sports or have I worked with, certain population. So I was able to kind of, I guess, use my background working at career services at VCU to work with the athletics department. So it's more as an actual functional project for my job. And I was able to kind of get in front of more student athletes to educate them on career decision-making, how to network and how to connect with employers. So that was something that wasn't in my job description, but I used my own athletics background to get in front of other young people that look like me that otherwise wouldn't come to the career service department.
I love that. And we got a good question from Dorothy, which I want to share. So how has it been different, in the collegiate space to veterans, specifically through your identity as a Black male?
Wow. All right. Dorothy, give me these big questions. This is a good one. Like in transparency, I don't think I've processed like my intersections, like being a Black man, being a man, being, a Christian, all these different things until I've left higher ed. I kind of felt nervous, I think, while I was in higher ed to be a voice to some regard about like what people might feel that look like me, right? But I think coming to the veteran space, I felt a little sense of relief because, at the end of the day, like my opinion is really unique. Like there's not a lot of people that come from higher ed that transition into working in state government. There's not a lot of people that have an athletics background. There's not a lot of, I guess, young Black men that are leaders. All the people that I supervise are like 5, 10, 15 years older than me. So I feel like I feel like more, I guess, safe to be able to voice my opinion because like they trust me in that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I feel like in some ways, if I feel a little bit safer to talk about things that deal with my ethnic background, working with veterans. And veterans have a lot of different challenges. Like, these folks, not all of them have post-traumatic stress syndrome. But when you're working in the military for maybe 4, 6, 20, 30 years, you're kind of conditioned to do a job function and you kind of move from installation to installation. And they tell you like, you got to get up, you got a POC in the next 24 hours or the next day or two. And you got to pack your bags to go from Virginia to Hawaii. And, now you got to do this job. And so you do that for a course of years. It has an impact. And then when it comes time to leave the military, you don't know what to do. Like, what does it mean for you to actually apply for a job? What does it mean to actually, go out into the community and just buy your own groceries? These are very small things that cause a lot of anxiety and stress. So I say all that to say this is like, I've realized like my story has a small part in somebody being able to find a commonality and then to open up, right? There might be a veteran that's 30 years old and he has a family and a young family, and they don't necessarily know how to apply for a job, but because they see me, they feel more open to have that conversation. Like, hey man, I don't even know where to start. Can you help me? So I just give that as I felt more safe to have those conversations working with veterans.
That's great. So you said you didn't know how to answer. You answered. That was a really good, deep answer right there. So we're sticking to the time. Like I said, man, I definitely could have had every single guest on this show for one individual episode, which I'm going to do. But what is your mic drop, your last thing, and then how can people get in contact with you before we go to our next guest?
Yeah, so I know we didn't talk a lot about like the career decision-making aspect, but like I love working with folks to figure out how to get from point A to point B in their careers. And I just tell folks, any client that I work with, they might have been in the workforce for 30, 40, 50 years, or they might be like at a dead end job. And I tell folks, like, you know, I'm 34 years old and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing for the rest of my life. So I just give that as an example of, like, we all have a level of fear that just comes up when we're trying to navigate our careers. And so just having that perspective, like, you don't have all the solutions, is perfectly okay. So that's kind of, I guess, my mic drop moment. So folks can get in contact with me through my I would say my website. So lenoircoaching.com. You also can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Quintrell Lenoir. You can connect through me with through email, lenoircoaching@gmail.com. So yes, pleasure. Thank you, Phil, for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward to tuning into the rest of the guests.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we're ripping and rolling. We're up to our next guest. Man, they already told me they already sleepy. So I gotta get the energy up. Make sure that my next guest is awake. But the next guest I have is my good fraternity brother, Justin Harris. So let's go and bring him on. Hello, Justin.
Hey Phil, what's going on, man?
Oh man, I know you're sleepy. I know it's time. But so Justin, for the listeners, just give a little, intro who you are, and we'll get right into it.
Absolutely. First, thank you, Phil, for having me on. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
Hi everybody. My name is Justin Harris. I am currently a career advisor working with students in the School of Public Affairs at American University. And I've had actually, interestingly, a similar career experience with Quintrell. We've had conversations as we know each other and talked about that. I had a background coming actually working in higher ed now, probably about 10, almost 11 years or so. And I actually started in academic advising for student athletes. That was my experience doing that at JMU. That was my experience doing that at University of Massachusetts Amherst, at Towson University, and then I basically transitioned from working with student athletes to now working in direct career advising. And all of that actually, it seemed like it came through happenstance, but it was somewhat of a plan and somewhat of a structured decision for me. I originally knew I wanted to go into higher ed. I just didn't know exactly where that would be. I enjoyed working with students. I enjoyed working with athletes. I was a former athlete in high school. So I knew that population, and I knew some of the resources that I felt like a lot of them needed, and some of them didn't take advantage of. So that's why I moved into that space. But I really enjoyed the career aspect of working with them and seeing how I can have an impact going further on, other than just, hey, you graduate, but what's next? So that's really taken me in towards career advising, and that's why I've been working in this space now at American University for almost 5 years.
So I know primarily, maybe in the athletic space, maybe you did have more interaction with probably Black male students. And then as you transition outside of the athletics, it's probably less than, and more specifically, maybe less than at American. So can you speak to that experience of you, maybe having that direct mentorship on a lot of Black males to maybe not so much or less or difference in your different roles?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're exactly right. That was majority of the student population I was working with, especially in one of my first full-time roles, which was at Towson, was working with the football team there. And that was primarily, of course, Black males. So the interactions with them were, yes, I was their professional, I was their academic advisor. We had a level of respect, but it was also a level of kind of understanding each other and each other's backgrounds and where people came from. So we really built some significantly strong relationships with some of those athletes. Man, I remember just having conversations with some of them where I'm not even talking about, don't look at me as Justin Harris, the career advisor. I'm just Justin Harris, the person. Like, I'm another Black male talking to you, trying to give you advice, trying to mentor you, because I know what potentially could help you, and I know some things that could potentially hurt you because I've seen them before, and maybe you just haven't had the opportunity to experience them yet. So trying to be kind of, hey, I've been through some of this stuff. Here's something you might want to watch out for. Here's something you want to think about. So it really took on a role of not just saying, hey, I'm doing my job, but I also want to make sure you're succeeding. And I'm going to go a little extra mile for you because I know that you may need that potential help, or you've come to me to seek it out. So I have some of those same relationships. However, it's just different because the population is different that I'm working with now. I have actually a much broader population other than, yes, I still have some Black males that I work with and I'm their advisor for as a career advisor, but I also have international students, which I did not see barely at all when I was an academic advisor for student athletes. So I have international students. I have students that Some of them have lived all over the world. Some of them come from more affluent backgrounds. Some of them actually who come from less affluent backgrounds. So it's a much more diverse mix of student populations I'm working with now. I think that's something that's interesting though, because now I approach the situation as I get to also learn about you and your background. That's something I haven't experienced before because of my background and where I came from. So now it's a opportunity for us to share life experiences, that I can share my life experiences with you as a Black male. I literally have had students that come from areas before and said, well, in my where I've lived at and coming to DC was a culture shock because they didn't see as many minorities or many international students or many Black students because they came from this small rural town.
I love that. I love that. So, going into those spaces, we talk about mentorship and transitioning. So, can you speak to some maybe either higher ed mentors for you or career services mentors for you? And if there any of those were Black men,
Yeah.
was there that overlap? Like you seek them out, or it was like formalized mentorship?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one person in particular that I definitely consider a mentor. I don't know if he would know that I would call him a mentor because I don't know. We've never had that formal discussion to say, "Hey, you're my mentor," or I want to be your mentee." But that person is Trey Lewis, and I don't know if you remember him from your time at JMU, Phil. He might have been, I think, came a little after you might have already graduated, but I worked with him through the Center for Multicultural Student Services at JMU. I was a student working in there as a grad student. And he was not my direct supervisor, but he was another Black man in higher education that I got to know and I got to work with in a lot of different ways. He went on to actually work as a director of at least 2 or 3 different career services offices at PWIs. So he was one of probably the only persons that I knew as a Black male that was in career services. And at the time that I was actually looking to make the transition from athletic academic advising to career advising specifically, he was the person I reached out to. He gave me gems. He gave me exactly, this is step by step what you need to do if you're looking to go into career advising. He said, if you had all this, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. So I literally followed that blueprint that he set for me and said, hey, do these things and you're going to set yourself up for success to go into this field. And that happened. So he's somebody that, even though we don't talk all the time, I know some mentor-mentee relationship people talk very often. He's always something I know I can call on, I can reach out to, and just catch up and say, hey, this is how I'm doing. It could have been 2 years, and I can still call him now today and say, hey, this is what's going on, and check in with him. He's now actually Dr. Trey Lewis, and actually he's in higher ed now as a faculty member. He's left the career services space because he had bigger goals to achieve. So.
That's crazy. And I love it. Like I say, Dr. Lewis, people know him. I might have to follow up with him and connect with him too. It seems like
Yeah.
if he mentored you, I know he's good people, man. He knows what he's talking about.
Definitely.
So, as you're going up, what have been some learning points? And you spoke to it very well, like having to do some introspection and learn about different cultures. And like, I love this, the diversity, equity, and inclusion work is we need to do it within ourselves too and learn about different cultures. So can you speak to that too? Like, wow, like I do carry that. Like sometimes I'm like this diversity training, I don't need, I'm Black and whatever. But then I realize like, yes, I need this just as much as other people to learn different experiences of other marginalized groups. So just speak to your journey about that, through your time in higher ed.
Absolutely. I think that's been, I would say, a really important piece, and it's something that I've seen grow as far as importance on college campuses, definitely in the last year and a half. I think everybody knows how much more DEI has been a hot topic or a trending thing, but I think it's bigger than a trend. I think it's becoming a solidified aspect in the higher education space, in the private corporate sector. And I think for us as Black men, we have a key role to play in that. Not that we need to be the chief diversity officer all the time. That's not the role that we always need to play. That can be played by a different person, somebody that is a minority, that is a Black male, or that is not. But I think we have a voice that needs to be heard in that space. I'm on our internal Career Center Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and that's an opportunity that my mindset has been opened up to so many different other areas of diversity, thinking about disabilities, thinking about people LGBTQ plus, like all of those things are sometimes stuff that I never actually even talked about with people before. But now these are conversations that I have regularly, and I think it informs me and makes me actually a better professional and a better Black male in career services, because now I'm not just looking from my perspective. I'm looking at, oh, you have a disability, and it could be an invisible disability that impacts you, or you're coming from this international background and you don't understand terminology. You don't understand how things are done because in your country or wherever you're from, things were in a different way. So now I think I'm doing my job better because I'm coming from so many different perspectives, and I have a much better understanding of the broader aspects of, hey, these are what people impacts people in their lives. This is what impacts people in their career decisions. So I think it helps me be a better advisor, that I've now kind of stepped into that DEI space and kind of embraced it to say, well, I don't want to look at it just from a minority Black male lens. I want to look at it from a broader perspective, so that I can be better in the work that I do.
I really resonate with that too, because I definitely had to do some learning on my own. And then I realized that within learning on my own, that really opened up a whole world of other identities and other groups. And that's kind of what led to this series of asking questions of different people in career services, but different identities, because that perspective building will help me advocate as a Black man for myself if I see the ways that other groups advocate for themselves, right? If that kind of makes sense. Like,
Exactly.
I can advocate better for Black men if I see how other people advocate for their identities, and vice versa. Like, then I can advocate for other groups too, because I've learned why they need advocacy in that
Right.
space.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that shared understanding is going to help all of us work together better.
I love it. So can you, this is my question. Can you speak to, your ways of seeing, I guess, leadership or connections with Black men in a broader sense? Like, do you have to go to conferences, and I don't know, just the ways that you make those same connections to
Yeah.
see other people like yourself?
Well, it's a mix for me. I think I definitely heavily lean on, prior relationships I have. We are both in the same fraternal organization, so definitely those relationships are significantly a big part of my life, and where honestly I get most of my interactions with other Black males. I am in my office. I am the only actual Black male and identify as a Black male in my office. And I know a few people scattered around campus, but I think we're so siloed, and I think COVID has of course played a part in that. That I don't get too much of that on my own campus and where I work at. So usually I'm talking to not only family members that I have, but I'm talking to fraternity brothers. I'm talking to people that I work with at other campuses. So I try to stay in contact with some of I used to work in athletics, some of the coaches. I try to stay in contact with them. I have another person that worked with me in academic advising when I was at another institution too, that I try to stay in contact with. And he's somebody that usually every holiday we're texting each other, birthdays and those kind of things. We try to stay in contact. So that's usually where I'm getting most of my outlets. And not that I don't think it's important to do that in my workplace, but it's, for me, I'm really focused when I'm at work. Yes, I identify as a Black man, and I know that's an important piece, but that's not what I'm coming to work thinking about every day.
Okay.
And for me, why I think that's so important is because I feel like I would be quite stressed every day if I thought about how I was looked at as a Black male all day, every day. I still come as myself. People know I'm a Black male. That's obvious. You can see that, and I don't change who I am when I'm at my workspace. But I also don't make a point to make sure that's the thing that I'm thinking about every day, because I think that'll affect the work that I'm able to do. And that's going to affect my students. And I don't want to negatively potentially affect the students that I'm working with, because that's really my passion and why I want to do this work, because I want to see them excel in their careers.
So I guess obviously, the dual consciousness, but when you walk in through the threshold of American University, you're saying, okay, I'm career first. That's the hat, or the shaping educator and teacher and mentor. And
yeah, and I think I've gotten to the point now, and I kind of make a point to do this at every place I worked at, that I've gained the respect of my peers, my coworkers, the students that I work with, so that me being a Black male, that's not a significant piece, because they respect me. They know I can come in and do the job. My students respect me, and I hope that they don't come in and look and say, "Oh, this is a Black male. he's not going to give me good advising. I don't think that's the case at all. If that was the case, I wouldn't have as many students coming to me. My caseload wouldn't be as big.
Yeah.
But I think I've developed a level of he's good at what he does. He enjoys what he does. He wants to build relationships with people, no matter who they are, no matter who their background is. And he wants to come and do this great work and help the people that he's going to be working for. I'm very collegial with my colleagues. I have no problems working with anyone, regardless of what their background is. And I think that's part of the culture also of like the office that I work with. We have a very kind of diverse office, even though I'm the only Black male, but we have people who are international. We have people who are of various different races. Our actually executive director is from Sri Lanka. And if you look at him, he's the same color as me. But when you talk to him, you hear his accent. And we have a level of respect, and I think a respect for everybody and where they're from and where they come from and what they bring as their whole self to the institution and to the work that they do.
I love it. I love that. And that's something good. So, where do you, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a really engaging question. Like, okay, in regards to, I brought this up earlier. It's like, what do you think is I don't want to say like stereotypical Black value, but, like a cultural aspect that you think bleeds into work and then I guess vice versa. Maybe how does career services bleed into your personal life? I'm just thinking like, I don't know, like sense of humor, jokes. I don't know what I don't know. What can you think of?
Something that's a cultural value for me.
Large family gatherings. I don't know. I'm trying to think
I
of.
don't know. I think for me is I am a very family oriented person. So that's like always an important piece. I have a strong faith as well. Now I don't carry that with me every day saying I'm a Christian or I practice this particular faith, but I talk about how much what I do, yes, it's for my students and it's for them, and I wanted to make sure they get it, but I'm a representation of my family. And the reason why I push so hard for that and I want to build that respect is because I'm representing them. Like every single day that I walk into this campus, every day I walk into this building, I'm a representation of my family and the people that have come before me. And I think that could be an ingrained value of anyone, but I think coming from a Black family, like, when you go out in this community, you represent all of us. You need to make sure that you're upholding to the legacy that was built before you too, or improving on the legacy and making sure you're getting us out of generational curses. I think those are both really important. So that family aspect and making sure that I'm doing this for a higher purpose is what I bring to my job every single day as a Black man in career services.
Honestly, I think you answered that just the way I thought I would too, because I was about to say, like, I'm thinking of my mom saying, "Don't embarrass me," kind of thing, like that, like don't embarrass, and then you better act right, and then the generational thing, like I think about that subconsciously too, of my grandfather, who went to college, and I was like, I can't be letting him down. I gotta adhere to, generate the ancestry thing is very big. I don't know if that's a Black thing, or African thing, but ancestry is very important, and honor and legacy. And I think that I do believe that's a value that bleeds over into my work. It's legacy building and respect of ancestry and upholding that ancestry. Don't go out here embarrassing us, kind of thing.
I think another piece to that too to think about, Phil, is also sometimes I work with a lot of first generation college students. And oftentimes the first generation college students are Black males or Black females. This is anecdotal, but I'm pretty sure we did a poll on that. Oftentimes they're Black males and females. So with them seeing me doing this work, and I let them know, not to boast or anything, but I'm like, I have a bachelor's degree. Yeah, I have a master's degree. I was not the first in my family to go to college. I'm privileged in that point, but you have a very important spot that you're in now because you're that person is now you're the first, and there's going to be a second, and there's going to be a third, and it's going to continue on. So I make sure I push and encourage them to say, yes, I'm not the first. I've gotten 2 degrees. You can do that too. I didn't know I was going to do that. That wasn't, I thought about it. It was a plan. It was something I had in mind, but I saw people that came before me that did that. And that's why I knew that it was achievable and possible. So that's why I tell students, you can do it. And I have these, and you can get the same thing as well or more.
All right. Well, this is great. I gotta have you on. This is a long time coming. I think I bothered Justin like in 2017. Like, man, I gotta get you on the podcast. So for those that are listening, what is one way people can connect with you? And then your mic drop comment.
Yeah. You can connect with me at justinh@american.edu. And my LinkedIn is Justin W. Harris _careers. So either way there, email me, add me on as a connection on LinkedIn, whichever way. I think my one gem that I would say is for anyone is, and this is something I think is really important to me. I approach the work that I do, I approach the people that I work with in a way that I'm always going to be authentic. You know, how I'm presenting now is the person that I am. You know, I do have a humor, I joke, but I'm also a very serious person. A lot of people say when you first met me, he's very serious because I take my life seriously. And I don't let that lead me, but I'm very intentional. I'm very authentic about that. And when you present that to people, they respect that. You know, they definitely respect that. So I always make sure I carry that authentic piece of myself in every space that I am, whether it be having fun and hanging out with friends or going into the workplace.
I love it. And yeah, it's true. I thought you was very serious in the meetings. You know, I was like, man, this dude's serious, but you get things done and you're someone that's, definitely doing big things. And I'm so glad that you answered the call to be on this podcast and share your thoughts tonight. It's been great.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me, bro.
All right, please. All right, so we got our last guest. I know, we got the young guy, the youngest guy on the block. I believe he's youngest. I'm making, a lot of assumptions here. But we have Mr. Reggie Hill. Welcome, Mr. Reggie Hill. This is the first time we met. Shout out to Whitney. Whitney. Put you on. If Whitney thinks you're good people, you already stamped 100 that you're good people. So go ahead and share the listeners. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Reggie.
All right, so you were saying that, assuming that I'm the youngest. So I'm 27, just to put it out there. So I don't know.
Okay, then you are the youngest.
I don't. Yeah, all right, cool. So right now, I work at Drexel University as a co-op advisor. So my path into career development and professional development, it was similar to everybody else on the panel. I started in collegiate athletics. Honestly, when I first went to school, all I knew was that I wanted to work in professional sports. So I was going to get my sport management degree and come back home and work for the Sixers. That was my plan. Didn't work out like that. Once I really got, into school and learning about the world of sports and everything, professional sports wasn't my thing. I kind of geared towards, student athlete development. That was my type of thing. So when I graduated, matter of fact, it's actually funny because my senior year for my bachelor's, I was in Virginia doing an internship, Virginia Beach, at the Virginia Beach Fieldhouse. I don't know if you're familiar with that or near, but but either way, after that, I kind of, geared towards collegiate athletics. I saw a lot of students that were, pursuing sports and not really thinking about the end game. I got a lot of friends that are, involved in sports, went to college to play, but really helping people figure it out was my thing. I actually, so when I graduated with my master's, I decided to, test the field and see where I would go with that. After my search, I kind of realized that, I really wasn't putting myself in a predicament where I wanted to, stick to only student athletes. There's a lot of politics, back end stuff. You get to realize that student athletes really only listen to, their coaches for most of the part while they actually in school. So I kind of wanted to gear towards the overall student body, which, landed me into, career, services.
So that's quite a journey. It's funny, interesting, like the student athlete piece. So, as you're the young boy, the young bull, as I say, right? Did I say young bull up there in Philly? You're the young bull. What was some mentorship or some people that said, started exposing you to higher ed, saying, this is a space I want? Did you we have some, as Quintrell said, mentors or people that kind of pulled them and modeled things. Who was those people for you?
So I definitely had a few mentors, but one that stands out, really key to me is when I first got to my undergrad. I was in the sport management program. Dr. Crowley, he was a professor within the department, but he being at a PWI, you understand what's going on. So he was very proactive. After our first class, he reached out. He pulled a few of us to the side that looked similar and had that conversation where it was like, hey, I'm Dr. Crowley. If you need anything, my office is here. So, you being at, your first year, being a freshman, you kind of just going through everything and the world is yours. But, he definitely took the time to give me realistic perspectives. Somebody that was an open air, gave me great advice, always, encouraged me to, expand my branch and think outside of Philly. I know I did still end up in Philly, but it was the opportunity. so it was the opportunity. But either way, he definitely expanded my mindset and really gave me a great perspective moving forward on how to maneuver through the world. And it was very, key to where I'm at today.
I love that. I love that. So, I was thinking about that same thing. That question that I asked Justin is like, what were some things that that you bring to the office that is like, this is my identity as a Black man I'm bringing to the office, whether that's that respect to ancestry or sense of humor. What is something that you think that's like your vibe, like because your identity is a Black male, I'm bringing that to the space I'm in.
I would definitely say that I have a real relaxed personality. I'm kind of I'm very chilled and laid back. So I kind of bring that vibe to the office, but I do bring myself into my office. So in my office now, I got a picture, the infamous picture where AI, he's stepping over Ty Lue. So but it's like the way that my door is set up, you can see it every time you walk by. But either way, like I really made sure that everything was home, like some of my favorite books, books that I completed, obviously looking at sport magazines and stuff like that, but really just in tune with myself, making sure that it was a place, making sure that the office is a place where I'm comfortable. And when you step in there, you intrigued, you want to know more, and I put it all on the table. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. I need to get some more. I mean, you come to my office though, you just see a bunch of kid drawings and alpha stuff all over the walls because I don't really have much in the office. But with that, talk about branching connections. I know that you connected with Whitney, a phenomenal person.
Yes.
But what about branching out and connecting and finding spaces with maybe other Black men at Drexel or at Higher? Have you made some relationships, to find your, quote unquote, your people?
Yeah. Main thing is I really put myself out there. So I'm really like intrigued on what's going on. So I always got my ears to what's going on campus. So, different events, obviously joining, specific associations, in which you can connect. So like Black professional associations, we got that at Drexel, and seeing people and really just, being in that same space, and just really getting a chance to pick someone's brain, get to understand more. Definitely just sometimes you got to be that person that extends the olive branch and be like, hey, this is I'm Reggie, I work here, you got time to grab some coffee, talk, relax, whatever. But yeah, really just taking advantage of events that's going on, and attending, seeing who's there, see who has similar interests. If we kick it off, cool. And just really keep going, be interested.
I love it. So okay, so you might be on the other edge now, right? Like who was that mentor? You said Dr. Crowley?
Dr. Crowley.
Dr. Crowley.
Yeah.
Have you caught yourself being a Dr. Crowley on campus? Have you corralled a group of young Black men on campus or pulled one to the side and say, hey, young bull, I'm gonna say that for the rest of the time. Hey, young bull, that let me help you real quick. Or just in general, like maybe in a one-on-one session, you like gravitated to a young Black male and said, this feels like I'm on the other end now. Has that happened? That weird other sideness?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the main thing that I will say is, obviously, the demographics of, Drexel, you don't really get to run into many, students. So, you really, when I do get a chance to see students, especially that identify similar as me, man or woman, I really take the time to kind of just give them that extra support. You know, you don't always have to go out the way and be like, you know, like you gotta make sure you do this, make sure you do that. You don't got to do that. You're really, like I said, the information is what's valuable. I'm going to give you the information no matter who you are. I'm going to give it to you, and obviously you understand just like I understand, you know, in regards to how it is being Black in America, being Black in everywhere. So it's kind of like we got those unwritten or unsaid things that we don't have to talk about all the time. But it's like, you know, like I know that I'm guiding you in the right direction. I'm giving you everything you need to know. And, you know, we kind of just work like that. Some students gravitate, not all students gravitate. And, you know, it's understandable. You got to understand that everybody's living their own life. But I know that I'm always here. I know that I'm always visible, available. And I definitely try my best to, you know, give you as much information as I know, because I'm still learning myself.
Have you ever caught yourself putting a career hat at the cookout? And what I mean by that, like in informal settings, you brought this knowledge that you have in higher ed out to the community, and not in a formal workshop setting. That it just popped out of nowhere. Like, you know, now you're known as the career guy, you know, in family circles and stuff, or you're the guy that works at that college kind of thing. Has that happened to you?
Yeah, definitely. I do it with my little sister. Because she in her freshman year at Penn State. So I'm very much on her, like, hey, what is it you want to do? Like all these things. And obviously, she comes back to me and asks me questions, but I feel myself putting on my career hat, especially with her. You know, sometimes with your friends and you know, family and stuff like that. And obviously, you do get known as the career guy and just higher ed, you know what I mean? Sometimes, especially because me being one of the, you know, first people in my family really go to college, you know, it's kind of like you in school and it's got like you work at a school. So it's kind of like you look at this prestige, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like just really taking the time to soak it in, embrace it, you know what I mean? And but yeah, it's main person is my sister. She'll thank me later.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. I mean, I'm gonna just tell you a random story too, is that sometimes I get people to say, "Oh, that's, you know, little Phil," because my dad's Big Phil, and I get people asking me questions about like housing and like financial aid. And I was like, "Y'all don't even work in those offices," but you know, if they know I work at Mason, they think I got the plug on other stuff. So it's just interesting how that happens, family wise. So one of my questions too is, and I asked this earlier to Quintrell, is like, have you felt, you know, tokenized, and maybe not so like, you know, just in higher ed in general, in other spaces where it was like, if you're the one of only, and how do you deal with that? You know, and I think Justin said too, how he navigates different spaces and says, you know, well, I'm not, you know, I'm going to do the best work where people view me as, you know, the best worker rather than just looking at me as a Black male. So how do you deal with that sometimes if you are the one and only in a certain space?
So the main thing I will say, you know, I wouldn't say that I've been in instances where I've been like tokenized, but not recently, you know, like March 2020, the start of pandemic, me, Whitney, and you know, our colleague Ariel, we started with the idea committee within the Career Development Center because obviously things need to change. So, you know, a lot of times you would kind of get like kind of expected to do things because we was like focusing on DEI, but we also got our job to do as well. And also is really just being in a situation where you have to let others know, even when they are coming to you with maybe even certain opportunities or, you know, maybe even certain, you know, aspects that you're like, hey, like this is kind of not really the route that we need to go. Like, obviously we can do the work and we can put in the footwork, but it's going to take way more, you know, compared to like you just coming to me, like, you know, what suggestions do you have? And honestly, if you are asking for suggestions, I want follow-up. I want feedback. How is this going? How are we tracking the progress? So if you aren't ready to really have those conversations, and when those conversations do come up, those topics are asked, then maybe we're not having the right kind of conversation. It's kind of like I want to say like a PR type of thing, but it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like, hey, this is how I made my impact on the world type of thing. And it's not, you know, you got to really take the time to educate yourself. And we experience it every day as, you know, Black people living in the office, you know, so that's kind of how I handle it. I don't, you know, because like you can, because Whitney said, be honest, because you can be in situations, where it's like people will come to you and kind of expect because you are focusing on it, but you just got to be honest and really like have a real conversation where it's like, if we're not doing this and we're not doing that, we're not tracking this progress, and I can't see some quantitative data that shows that you are making a change, and we kind of just keep on talking, then it's no point in having the conversation.
Gotcha. So basically, you're trying to say when you see things, you want to make sure that it's not performative things, that it's real tangible outcomes and it's sustainable tangible outcomes. In regards to just anything, like when we have ideas where we get now, with a certain DE&I initiative, sometimes now more marginalized groups are being highlighted because it's kind of the wave, but we want to make sure that this is sustainable and not just for, as you said, PR.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things, and I definitely say this in the office all the time, it's about legacy. You know what I mean? Because I don't have to be here all the time in order for this change to happen. The thing is, we're supposed to plant seeds and watch them grow. And I don't have to be there to experience it. I don't have to be a part of that project every step of the way. Things grow and they get better and better and better. So, start thinking about the seeds. If you don't want to actually plant some tangible seeds, then it's kind of just talk.
Systems. I like that. I need to work on my systems because I'm very impulsive, but not like this podcast though. That was one thing I kept going for a long time. So for you, what are some ways that I was thinking as you said that, what are some ways that you individually are working on growing yourself as a professional and getting better, and mainly not saying doing the work, but also your learning, your individual learning. Because I said that too, like for me, I had to do some learning to other groups that are different identities than myself. To be a better advocate for my own group, I need to understand what other groups are going for. So what are some ways that you're doing your own learning right now?
Yeah, honestly, just once again, educating myself on many different aspects, not really thinking, not really putting myself in a perspective like, oh, that has nothing to do with me. At the end of the day, right is right, wrong is wrong. So if something is going wrong, and it's about having compassion, and really having the drive. Nobody wants nobody that feels sorry for them, because that's not what it's about. It's about everybody having equal opportunities and equitable opportunities. So really, like I said, just taking the time to educate myself, understanding statistics and data, really identifying where things can be improved. Obviously identifying where they're at now, so that we can improve on them. Talking to other marginalized groups, collaborating, and really just sharpening, iron sharpens iron. Everybody's kind of focusing on different things. And, obviously, it's different marginalized groups. Like, for example, like, Black, me and you being Black, we're going to advocate for Black people. But if we got somebody that's Hispanic, Latinx, they probably going to be like, they probably see Hispanic, Latinx within the change that they want to see, so really combining, our thoughts, and seeing how we can kind of bounce off each other and feed off each other, and attending events and things of that sort, and really getting to be, knee deep into the crowd and kind of, focusing on what's going on, identifying problems, and really just seeing where I can make my mark.
I love that. All right. This is a random question, and I'll let you go for your gem. What if you could build the Reggie Institute of Higher Ed? I like that too. Reggie Institute, or sounds the Reggie Institute of Higher Ed. What would be one class that you think you would need to teach in the Reggie Institute of Higher Ed, and like what would be like some of the curriculum of that class?
Honestly, it might sound a little cliche because I'm in like career and professional development, but honestly, professional development and understanding, what it really takes to be successful in any field, because at the end of the day, we all service, someone, whether you are super techie, whether you super personable, whatever career you're in is honestly to help somebody else. But I think that a lot of students don't really understand what it takes to excel after school. And I think sometimes you kind of wait until it's not sometimes, most of the time, students wait until it's too late. So definitely like professional development and really understanding what it takes to get to that next level, how to network, how to do your resume, cover letter, stuff like that. I think that is really, key. And yeah, career management 101. But yeah.
All right, so we already got a school. It's called Rahe Institute of Higher Ed. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think that'd be a great class, a career development class. Mine would be like public speaking and podcasting. So Reggie, yeah, we're gonna get enrollment up. Yeah, for profit. I'm just playing. That's kind of sketchy. So Reggie, this has been great, and I think this is great that we met. Shout out to Whitney for connecting us.
Yeah.
And so we'll stay in touch. If you could drop, like I said, your gem, what would be your one gem that you want to drop on the listeners, as well as how people can connect with you?
Okay, cool. So the one gem that I would drop is really just, chase your purpose. Really don't let nobody get in the way of that. I feel like you have the idea. Nobody sees your vision but you. You know what I mean? So really make sure that you seek it out to the fullest and if you seek it out to the fullest, then and it's not what you want or it's not what you expected, move on to the next thing. But continue to chase your purpose. It'll definitely land you in places. And your purpose will lead you places that, sometimes those fears of speaking, like talking to people, so like you said, public speaking, your purpose, you know what you want to do. So you're going to overcome that because of your purpose. So definitely, that's my gem. You can follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Reggie Hill. I don't got I'm pretty sure it's other Reggie Hills in the world. I'm in Philadelphia, PA. I work at Drexel University. So, and you could email me if you want it. I don't see why I don't have no services or anything, but if you did, reggierhill@gmail.com. Once again, that's reggierhill@gmail.com. And I'll put it in the chat too.
Oh man, this has been great. Well, I think it's great. Thank you so much, Reggie, for jumping on. This has been great, and I really appreciate your time tonight.
No, I appreciate you for having me, and definitely, Justin, Q, Joe. It was definitely great hearing y'all stories. Definitely following y'all after this, so don't worry. I already follow Phil, so we'll definitely stay in touch.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really did not expect all the gems. I couldn't even really process all the great conversations that we had tonight. And so for those that joined us at the end, what we just had was a great discussion as Black men in career services, just a wide variety of perspectives and our ideas and how we look at career development, as well as, what we think the future of career development is going to be, and just how we bring ourselves to work. So this has been great. This is ideally just the kind of episode that I wanted to have. For those that missed this live, don't worry. This episode will be up on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your audio podcast tomorrow, because I'm going to download this tonight. And so don't worry. Or you can watch the recap of all of these videos right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So you can watch this as well. So this will not go anywhere. For those that are listeners of the Positive Filter Show, please continue to follow Positive Filter on all the platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn page, Instagram, all that. Positive Filter, spelled with a PH. And if you want to call the hotline, that's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. You can leave a voicemail. Sometimes I upload those voicemails on the podcast. But this has been a great episode. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. I really appreciate it. I love the comments that we had tonight. Thank you so much, and we're out.